So we're live, like officially. So that might actually mean that you're doing it right. I don't know, we're getting an alert there that the tech guy ran away on. So just want to find out if there's anybody watching currently. Can you just throw into the chat that you can actually hear me, that I know that we got the audio working correctly? For some reason we always have this trouble kicking it off. Of course I'll sit here with awkward silence normally like Goldie does. Just want to make sure that everybody can hear me before we get started. And then we'll jump into our topics for today. We have a few to discuss. The big event that happened just a week ago that we were at, the Fish'n Canada Carp Cup. Also, just want to make sure that we go over things like the rigs and such that we were using there. We have an announcement to make for a contest that we want to kick off soon. Audio's coming through just fine. Is that a big yes? Perfect. We got a few people starting to come in there. Had a few go in and out. As you can see by this elbow, there is another person here. Keep talking. Have you figured this all out yet? Is this like ready to go?
It's ready to go. You just got a double echo coming in.
A double echo. We don't want that. So that means you have another microphone on somewhere.
No, it's reading that it's got double microphone going on.
So what do we need to do to correct that so that people can hear us properly?
Wait for the 40-second delay. There we go. Perfect.
All right.
Absolutely perfect.
And now you're running away again?
Yeah, I need a drink.
Oh, you need a drink. Okay. Ready to be prepared. All right. So as I mentioned a few moments ago, when we're trying to make sure all of this is working correctly and going smoothly, biggest reason that we wanted to have a topic of discussion for this month's live stream, the June live stream, is what just happened last week, the 2019 Fish'n Canada Carp Cup. Always an exciting time, something I pretty much spend my whole year planning for. So this was the second year in a row that it was officially done by Fish'n Canada, but overall the third year of the Canada Carp Cup. And once again, I teamed up with Demir, and for the second year in a row, Goldie and Kevin teamed up together. It was a pretty exciting event leading up to it, getting everything ready. There was a little bit more stress involved for me this time, getting everything put together and ready to go for the tournament than in previous years. And honestly, I can't say why. Pretty much had everything I needed, had all the bait we needed. Just for some reason, I couldn't wrap my head around getting into that excited mode until really we got there. We were on the road and almost there. Then I really started to get excited, and I got into full-on competition mode. But as always, for the past 3 years, it's amazing to meet up with all of those anglers. So many friends there, so many people that we only get to see, at that time of year just for that tournament. But others we see throughout the year, and it's just great to be able to go and have a big social leading up to the peg draw. So once again, for now the third year in a row, the Canada Carp Cup was held at Long Sault Parkway. So we were able to fish that venue again, which is an amazing venue. I so wish I could make sure I do a trip there every single year. But the best part was when we first arrived, we left real early from here in Niagara, Kevin, Goldie, and I, with a van that we put together. Kevin was able to put together for all of our gear, which we needed. We went up, met up with Demir in Toronto, picked up his equipment, and he would be following behind us a few hours later. Managed to make the big drive in pretty good time, didn't have any hiccups or anything like that. And when we got up into Long Sault, arriving like usual right across from the popular swim, the Pines, we were, funny enough, I think it was coincidental, but we were greeted by Len Purdick, the organizer of the tournament, Dave and Jim, and I believe also Peter and Spike were there. That we were met up with all of them right when we got to the first pegs to start looking at. And I'll tell you, that first day the weather was fantastic. It looked amazing. Water levels were in fact high, but it was so, I don't want to use the term relaxing, but it was, you just got this feeling of peace arriving there, knowing what was about to happen in the coming days, but just to be able to see the water and know that there's some monster fish swimming around in there. So yeah, we were able to exchange pleasantries and say hello to the guys as we met up with them there. And then Kevin and Goldie and I proceeded to actually drive through the pegs, as they'd been announced a few days earlier, and just start looking at the swims, seeing which ones were the ones that would catch our eye the most. Obviously going in, we always have our favorites and the ones that we want to choose and hope to win the tournament from. But really, you can have a list of your favorites and get there, and based on weather conditions or water conditions, they might not be in any kind of shape or form to actually produce the fish that you need. So we started by just checking out some of the swims, looking at the pines. The current didn't seem quite right the way we would want it for those first two pegs, but we couldn't really see the third one, which was, I think, peg 1 from where we were at the bridge. So we proceeded to go down and go into the swims that were a little bit easier to check out. And funny enough, pretty quickly in, we started to see fish. Fish were rising, some were swimming, not too far from the bank. So it was a little bit different from what we had seen in the previous 2 years going up there, to actually see fish moving around and base our decisions off of that. Certain pegs that I definitely did not want this time. Based on the first year where Demir and I had peg 8, yeah, that was great. It was an awesome swim. We did really well. But last year the water was way down, and those pegs didn't produce, those pegs on Dickinson Island. But of course, last year, Demir and I also ended up on Dickinson Island, just on the other side. So going in this year, I didn't want to be on that island at all. Once we got there, of course, where peg 8 and then peg 9, the celebrity swim are, once we saw those spots, the fish were everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. You couldn't look without spotting a fish. So it became very apparent that those would be the pegs to get. Peg 8 and 9, we wanted one of those right off the bat, even though we went in with the plan of, let's stay away from the island, let's fish somewhere else. So yeah, obviously, like I said, you make your plan going in, things can change as soon as you get there. But we also proceeded to check out a number of the other swims. So many of them looked great, but we didn't see signs of fish. Others didn't look all that great, but we saw fish. So it was one of those kind of oddball things where you go in with your plan, then you got to rewrite your plan and think, okay, did I bring everything I needed to fish these particular types of swims? Long swims that have relatively shallow water, or deeper swims that have a little bit more weed. Did we come prepared for everything? And yeah, it was pretty cool to be able to go through, check out those pegs, check out the swims with the guys, and then we proceeded back to the hotel where the peg draw would be, and just kind of get checked in, relax a bit, do a little bit of the socializing with some of the guys as they arrived, and kick back and have a cold pint. So that was pretty much us getting there and being able to see the swims and really getting into that mode of, yeah, we're here, it's going to happen. Now we can't wait for the peg draw. Can't wait to see the rest of the guys as they arrive. Wouldn't you agree? Everything went pretty smooth and got really exciting at that time, Goldie?
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
You doing okay over there? You're kind of hiding.
We're having some delay issues.
Delay issues? Well, we were expecting that, though, weren't we?
Yeah, no. Overheating.
So it's not like the audio is still syncing up, right?
Everything's good.
Okay.
It's just the video's a little bit wonky.
The video's a bit wonky. You think it's the camera?
No, I think it's the heat.
Oh.
It's like 1,000 degrees down here.
It's freezing down here.
Yeah.
I think perhaps you are overheated.
Yeah, probably.
Well, enough of that interlude. But what were your thoughts as we got there? Checked out the pegs and arrived at the hotel. Like, where was your mindset at that point?
What? Still trying to figure out the technical crap here.
Ah, I see. All right, so
Don't mind me.
as Goldie puts it, the technical crap is still being adjusted. But yeah, I know Kevin was excited, but he was completely burnt out. Obviously, we didn't sleep the night before, having left here. I think it was like 3 a.m. He was in the driveway for us to load the van. So it was a long drive through the wee hours of the morning, and probably 2 or 3 in the afternoon by the time we finally checked into the hotel. So yeah, the guys were pretty burnt out, but you could tell that they were excited. I was absolutely wired. Having seen fish, I had gotten my like 4th wind, and I was ready to go, and I was ready to go get fishing right away. But yeah, meeting up with everybody and getting into the peg draw that evening, that went interesting. Generally speaking, Demir and I don't do too well in the part where we draw for the order in which we'll do the peg draw. We usually come out kind of near the bottom. But in this particular case, actually, we drew really well. We drew 5th in the order. So I knew we had a really good chance of getting one of our top pegs. I think I had a list of about 6 or 7, which were further confirmed when Clint and Dave arrived, having checked the temperatures of all those swims, the water temperatures. And funny enough, my top 5 picks on my list matched the colder swims out of the groups. Funny enough, and it just helped me think that maybe the bigger fish were going to be in those colder swims, where the smaller fish would be more active in the warmer ones. Just my line of thinking. But seeing those temperatures and comparing them to my list, it kind of helped further secure which ones I wanted. Obviously 8 and 9 being my top picks. But Demir and I came out 5th in the draw. I think you guys were 4th in the draw. Yeah,
They're just ahead of you.
just ahead of me there. So we knew we had a good chance of being able to pull a swim that we wanted, that should be able to produce fish. So yeah, it was 8 and 9 that were my top picks. Peg 4, the birch, which is a peg that I've always wanted to fish, and as of yet haven't been able to. But funny enough, with those 3 being my tops, 22 and 23 were then my next choices. And that was basically because Clint and Dave took 5th place in peg 22 last year, and 23, while it didn't do a lot of big fish, it did a huge number of fish last year, even with those water levels low. Knowing the water levels were up this year, really hoping that the fish would be bigger as they were coming in. So yeah, came time to do the actual peg draw. I had my list there. Obviously peg 8, peg 9 being my top picks, then peg 4, and then 22 and 23. So coming out of that start, waiting for those first 3 guys to go up there and pick. Yeah, peg 8, peg 9, they went right away. I think it was JC that got the golden ball. He was like either 1st or 2nd out of the draw, got the golden ball, and just took 8 right off the bat. So that was gone. Bill and Paul, I believe, got peg 9. Then nobody picked 4 at that point. I don't remember which peg exactly went 3rd, but then you and Kevin went up and pulled 22. Is that right?
Yep.
So you guys pulled 22. So there is, 3 out of my top 5 gone in the first few choices. And it was up to me to go up there and choose for us, as Demir hadn't quite arrived yet. And going up there, the first ball I pulled out was peg 23. I was kind of on the fence. I didn't know what to do. I knew it would be stupid to put that peg back, knowing it is one of the ones that I wanted, and that it had really good potential. But also, I wanted peg 4 pretty badly. I had to take 23. I went with it. I think it was a good decision in the end. Demir was happy with it once he saw which one we had, and it also, funny enough, put us close to Kevin and Goldie, which we were only like 110 yards away.
140.
Like, it was 140.
Yeah, we measured it out.
140 yards. So that run I made was really good time.
Really
then.
Good sprint.
Yeah. So yeah, we got pegs next to each other in Chrysler Park. really, really nice bay of water. You guys had fish rising as soon as we got there that morning.
Yes, we were very excited when we first got there.
So yeah, it was neat. Demir and I didn't have any fish rising in our peg, but they did, just 140 yards away apparently, in a spot that did really well last year. So yeah, that morning, getting everything set up to the swims, it was easy. We just parked the van centrally and just moved all our gear to the 2 pegs, which didn't quite go as smooth as we had hoped. But
that was fun.
Yeah. The point is we got all our gear separated and put where it needed to be. And we were getting set up, being allowed at the pegs at 5 a.m. We had until 7 a.m. before we could put lines in. So got all that time for baiting up, letting around, setting up all your gear, such like that. I'm not quite sure what you guys did for that first 2 hours, but I know...
I sat in a chair and watched the water.
You sat in a chair and watched the water. And Kevin probably went out in the boat right away?
No, he ran around in circles setting everything up.
Oh, because Kevin's frantic and does things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And while I was starting to put things together, Demir took out the deeper sonar and started casting that around, trying to map out our swim with as minimal disturbance as possible. And that was pretty cool to see, to be able to watch the bottom contours, seeing where there's little bits of weed, things like that. It was neat. I was surprised at how flat our swim was. Yours was the same, but it wasn't quite as deep, you said?
It depends on who you talk to. Kevin plumbed it at anywhere between 3 and 4 feet, and Demir had it at 5 to 6 feet.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so it varied a little bit, but was for the most part pretty flat. Now you guys had more silt, and we had more weed.
We had a lot of silt. I think we found maybe 3 or 4 patches of
like
weed.
A firmer bottom too, or
no, it was all silt.
All soft.
I always had to pull the lead out of the muck.
Yeah, we had some of that at more of our distant spot where it was going into that kind of like soft sand on the far bank. But in my close spots where the weeds were, that was a pretty firm bottom. I didn't have any issues there. But yeah, that first day, it was pretty crazy getting everything set up, getting our lines out, getting ready. We're there. It's happening. The tournament officially started at 7. Lines go in. And I was using what I always use. Started off with, I had 2 rods set up. One that would be fishing my close spot, and one that would be fishing a distant spot, so that if I needed to pull my line off the distant spot, I had a rod ready to go, and I could switch spots with it without having to change my rigs or anything like that. We're only allowed to fish 1 rod. That is the rules here in Ontario for those who aren't familiar with that. So having one at the ready for any situation that I'm going to be fishing is the best thing I can do. And started off fishing the distance spot with a helicopter rig and a little PVA bag. Because Demir and I had noticed last year, by not baiting up right away, just maybe throwing sticks and boilies out and then a small parcel of bait, we can quite often get a quick bite. So that was the plan this year. And while we were getting our lines in, I think we were still just fine-tuning the rig to get it out there, and you guys had some activity right away.
So I was setting up the sign, so I didn't have any activity, but at 7:35 Kevin got his first fish.
7:35, so 35 minutes in.
And I had put my rod in at 7:33.
So literally, you had just cast in and he got a run.
Yeah.
Well, good job for spooking the fish over to him.
It's my job.
But that was actually a good fish, wasn't it? That was like 23 pounds?
That was our biggest fish at 23 something or other.
23 and change. Yeah, I remember you sending me the picture, and I'm like, literally, I had just made sure that my rod was in the rod rest, my line was tight and sunk down properly, and all of a sudden we're getting a picture of a 23 pounder right off the bat. It was kind of surprised, but
we were excited about it, but
yeah. Oh, you seem so defeated now. You're looking back with too much hindsight. Yeah, it was pretty wild to see a fish come out right away. Demir and I, funny enough, that first morning went really slow. We had some liners and some activity going on, but not much. We were really hoping for an early bite, but we didn't get it. And you guys actually got into a few fish early on, didn't you? Like the first part of that morning, you had a few fish, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, he had a miss and I had a miss, and then I pulled in a can't remember. I have to go get the score sheet to figure out what they were.
But you guys were catching that first morning for sure.
Yeah.
And Demir and I weren't. So I think it got to be about 10 or 11 o'clock, kind of past that initial bite time that we would expect to get takes, when Demir really started leveling the bait in. And I did the same. So he did it straight across to the spots that we had found over there that looked most ideal. And I baited up a spot kind of like right in the middle of the bay to the right, about 50 yards away, over some sparse weeds and such, just to kind of spread the bait around. And, normally I use a spom. When we're close, we use a baiting spoon, but usually I use a spom. Demir was using a spom for the distant spot, but this time around, I went with this bad boy. I've had this guy a while, and I love it, but I don't use it a whole lot around here.
That was very obvious.
What?
That was very obvious. He hadn't used it very often.
Well, yeah, I hadn't used it in...
There was a couple shots where I was watching, and it was behind your head. I think one went into a tree.
No, it didn't go into a tree, but there was a few times where it opened up on my brawly behind me.
That fell down. That's going to be really loud in a second.
Oh, well. Yeah, there was a few times where I accidentally bumped it and dropped my spod mix all over my brawly. But, that's part of fishing. But it's the TF Gear Air Bomb. And, I do love this thing. A lot of my spots around here, because we fish so many open spots with deeper water, I don't tend to use this as much as I would like. But this thing is awesome, especially when you want to spread the bait around, which is what I wanted to do for my close spot, which would be what I was essentially planning as a night spot. I wanted to really spread the bait around kind of in a big wide area. I can't remember if it was you or Kevin that referred to it as like a baseball diamond sized spot, where just clumps of particle everywhere. And then I was using the throwing stick to put boilies out. I was putting Tutti Frutti boilies out. They were in my spod mix, but I was also putting them out with the stick, as well as some pineapple boilies, the Monster Carp Tackle 16 mil in both flavors, and just sprinkling those out to kind of make this big feeding area where fish would just roam around. So this was my bait delivery system for the particle. If you're not familiar with it, it has this cord that attaches, so your line for your spod rod attaches to that ring. You just kind of pull this lever, you load it up, pull it to close it, slide this cord down, hook it onto here, and that's what holds it for your cast. And then as it goes out into the air, it comes loose of that hook. This pulls through the swivel, and when your line tightens up on the clip, get a hold of it, the tension pulls that, opens it up, and actually throws this mid-air. So instead of, you can let it hit the bottom hit the water like a normal spom, and then just give it a tug and it'll open up and drop it straight down. So if you got a lot of bird life, that's a good way to do it. But I was deliberately opening this up mid-air to throw the bait out, and it throws out like sometimes as much as 2 or 3 rod lengths, depending on really how hard you cast. And it was just spreading that particle out really, really well. And I couldn't have asked for it to go more perfect. That was what my game plan was for that spot, was just to give them a spot at night where a large pot of fish would come in and just be able to feed around everywhere, have complete confidence, and then every now and then one would slip up and find my rig. So that was the game plan. So while we baited that up, midday, we still weren't having activity, but we really did kind of whip that water up to a froth. But that was kind of our baiting strategy, is lots of bait in at specific intervals, and then just trickle in little bits with the throwing stick after each bite or after each fish. You guys did something different. You guys didn't really do much in the way of spamming. You did, but Kevin had a different plan, didn't he?
For the most part, we use the same basic principle. It's just he had a boat to zip around in, and I don't have a boating license or a life jacket, so I did everything from shore.
So he was going out finding spots with the boat, with the Echo Sounder, which, from what I understand, didn't work out quite as well as he planned.
He didn't have it mounted properly, so it was
couldn't get a good reading.
It was anywhere from a foot to 16 feet deep. a foot offshore.
Yeah. But anyway, the water was clear. He was able to see for the most part.
Oh, yeah.
So he went around, did some letting, just with a rod, dropping it straight down. And he was finding spots that he liked and dropping bait over the sides, spreading it around as well. And then you were spotting on very specific spots. You guys had some H-block markers out there that you were utilizing to kind of hold your spots. So we
Except for the first day.
That what you did.
My H-block moved almost a football field over.
Oh, that was
because the wind was
bad,
coming in wrong, and it wasn't properly set to the ground.
But you guys had those set up. You kind of had your spots marked.
Yeah, his spot was marked really well. He had a perfect. He wasn't getting the wind where he was sitting, and he had it perfect where he could hit it every single time.
Do we have a comment there? Message retracted. Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's the first time I've seen that one. All right, so somebody's commented, but then taken it away.
Yeah, that was like 5 minutes after we started.
Yeah, well, you know what?
You don't have your
I
glasses
can't see
on.
that far. No, my glasses are over here somewhere. But yeah, you guys were very specific where you did very tight baiting to your spots, whereas I was spreading it out really wide, and then because Demir was fishing pretty much along the far bank, he just spread it out along that bank, so there was just this long line of bait. And that was kind of our first day. You guys caught some fish. Demir and I had pickups, but no committed takes that whole first day and for the first part of that first evening. We had heard of some fish coming out. You know, the Fish'n Canada crew came around and hung out with both of us a fair bit that first day, which was, you know, a lot of fun. You know, obviously they were just after Kevin's coffee,
Yeah.
but you know, when he sets that kind of precedent like he did last year, obviously he made an addict out of Angelo for that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Which I finally did get to taste this year. A year later, the guy lives like
You
5 blocks from
you
us.
had 2 sips of it. And then you
But
ran
that
away.
was the second day, so we'll get to that because that was a funny situation. But yeah, going into that first night, Demir and I were kind of feeling a little bit beaten up. We had worked really hard to get everything set and ready to go, and it was shaping up like the first year where we didn't have anything first day. Although last year we had one in the first 7 minutes, this year we didn't. But it was that first whole day with nothing, and it was worrisome because we knew fish were moving through there. They had fish rising in their swim all over the place. All we could think of was that the winds just weren't right for the bay that we were in. So yeah, you know, good first evening. We did our traditional big stir fry that I cook up on the first night. Just sat back and relaxed, confident that what we were doing was going to be correct, but not entirely certain how the fish were going to react to it. Like I said, we were getting liners, but no committed takes, so we knew the fish were there, just unsure why things weren't working. And I think it was about 11 o'clock when Demir got our first fish, and through that rest of that first night, he actually nailed a few fish. We had our first, I think, 3 fish in the sack by the following morning, and I had continued through the night to get pickups and drops.
It's because the winds had died down.
Yeah, the winds had gone quite calm in front of us, so as soon as the winds died down and it got flat in front of us, that's when things picked up for us. And funny enough, that's when it really slowed down for you.
Until about 3 a.m.
And then you guys had more activity.
No, Kevin caught a fish.
Oh, a fish. Well, that's more activity.
Yeah, he didn't count though.
Oh, he was too small?
He was about the size of your foot.
My foot? The little guy.
He was maybe 6 pounds.
Yeah, so if it's under 10 pounds, it don't count. So obviously that one had to just go back.
Yeah, he went back.
But you guys were catching, right?
No, that was it.
That was it for the night?
That was it for the night. My alarm didn't beep, his didn't beep, and we just sat there listening to nothing.
Wow. Yeah, where we over at our swim, Demir was getting pickups. I was getting pickups. He had a few fish, but yeah, I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong. I was confident that the fish were taking my bait, but for some reason I just couldn't sting them, and I didn't know why. So that the second morning, so the start of day 2, Demir and I had a bit of a rethink of what we were doing. He kept with his tactic, obviously, because it was working and we had gotten our first group of fish. I made a change of making all my rigs longer. So I started with my normal short hook links, helicopter setup with, just a 6-inch rig, which would be what I would normally use anywhere else. And for my close spot that I was fishing through the night, again, that was an inline setup with a 6-inch rig, and they just weren't doing it. So I went to a much longer setup. So I actually have them here. So I only used 3 rigs through the entire tournament. Once I made the change to longer rigs.
That was a good thing about our spot. There was no snags.
Yeah, well, I had some trees to my right that the fish had gotten
apparently
into,
there was a tree down over where Kevin was fishing, but when he went out there were no big boulders, no rocks, no trees, no sticks, no anything to get stuck on.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
So we didn't lose any tackle.
I didn't either. I blunted a couple of hooks after getting a number of fish, but that came a little bit later. So we'll go over what my rigs were, actually. So once I changed from the short rigs and went to the long, I kept with these 2 basic ones, and then I made another change later on, which we'll go into. But started off with a helicopter setup, so length of lead core. This one in particular was the Esp Pre-Tied Helicopter Rig. So it already has the lead core, the swivel, the beads, the buffer tubing above where it clips over the lead. So it was a 3.5 ounce distance lead, and this was for where Demir and I were fishing straight across. Pretty much, I think it was like 110 yards straight across to the sandy spot on the other side of a weed bed that the fish were patrolling along. That's where he had gotten his bites. But my short rig, which would normally be like that, I couldn't actually produce the proper takes. So what I did at that point was I tied up a much longer rig. Now this is about 7 inches of end trap soft with the anti-tangle sleeve, and I just had 2 blobs of putty to help kind of lay it away. And I'm a big fan of a hinge stiff rig, but it just something was telling me not to go stiff, not to use that, like use a hinge rig but not a stiff one at all. So I used end trap soft so it would kind of lay down over what little bits of weeds were out there. And then from that end trap soft, I have a ring swivel looped on to the end trap so I can get lots of movement, and then tied directly to some it was coated braid, but I stripped all the coating off completely. I believe this one was the Nash Combi Link, so it's nice and supple once you get that coating off. This is then a size 4 Monster Carp Tackle Universal Perfection hook, and then on that, instead of using a hair rig or tying in my own D rig or anything like that, I wanted to try out the new, I guess they're not overly new now, but I tried them for the first time this past weekend, the corded D rig kickers. I'm not sure how well that shows up there. And then on that I just have a micro ring swivel mounted on that to use floss and hold the bait to it. So it was a very soft, very supple rig with lots of movement, where this would have no issue spinning around and getting into the fish's mouth. I put this out, I think, with just a 15 mil mainline pineapple pop-up, my favorite pop-up, and that's what I had on for the entire morning, and I still wasn't getting any activity. The wind had come back up, it was sunny, it was hot. I think Demir was still getting a few liners at that point, but we really weren't getting any activity. It had slowed for you guys, but you had Fish'n Canada through again, begging for coffee, or begging for the espresso. And I was dying. Demir had gone over for a visit and hung out there for a little bit because we were close enough. We had permission to move in between each other's swims. We just had to have our receiver on. So after Demir come back from his visit over with you guys and the Fish'n Canada guys, I decided to come over for a visit and had my receiver on and Kevin was finally going to let me try this, was it Zambione? I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's Kevin's Fancy Espresso that has Angelo absolutely hooked. And so Kevin finally made me one, and I was sitting there just chatting with you guys, and I was watching fish, actually good fish, rising on the far, back of your swim, maybe like 100 yards past our limit of 200 yards. And it was pretty wild to see, those fish coming up over there where we didn't have anything rising in our swim. Now, before I mention what happens next, I said I'd used the pineapple pop-up the whole morning. Based on a tip from Len, when he normally fishes that swim, he had mentioned that he likes to tip his baits with a little bit of pink. So what I did at that point, just before I come over to visit with you guys, is I have some of the mainline pink and white cell pop-ups, and I had just trimmed a little piece of the cell pink off and trimmed the top of my pineapple pop-up just so it had almost like a snowman pop-up, and that was my bait choice on the helicopter rig. I put that out there with a recast while Demir was visiting you. What happened? Did it stop working?
Uh-oh.
What happened?
I don't know. Oh,
We're still going though?
going down. Okay.
So it is still going.
Yeah, just flaked out for a second.
Okay, so not sure how much that cut out, but it'll be capped just a little bit. I don't know what happened there. But yeah, I had just done a recast with the pineapple pop-up, tipped with a little bit of the cell pop-up, just to have that yellow and pink combination, while Demir was over visiting you guys. I put that out, left it be, nothing was happening, so I came over to visit you guys for the espresso. And I wasn't over there, 8-10 minutes tops?
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't give it that long.
Not even that long.
Oh, it was long enough. He had just started the coffee. It takes 10 minutes. Yeah, you were probably there about 5 minutes.
5 minutes or so. Got the espresso in my hands, and we counted that I had had 2 sips before the receiver clipped onto my belt loop started to go nuts. And I immediately dropped my cup of espresso in your hands.
No, you stopped for half a second, looked at my rod for some bizarre reason.
Oh yes, because I heard the beeps, yeah.
But then you gave me the espresso.
But then I gave you my espresso, and I sprinted back to our swim, meeting up with Demir, who had then obviously set into the fish with my rod, and he handed it over as soon as I got over there. And this is at 2 in the afternoon, right? Like, it had been really slow for us during the day. Nothing was happening. The day before, we had our fish at night, so we were thinking that we were going to get all of our activity at night. And here it is, 2 in the afternoon, hot as can be, so slow for everything else, and I get this wicked take. It took a bit of fighting. The fish completely kited right, so having it out initially at 110 yards, it kited completely right on a big arc and went into some trees that were on the right that were just touching the surface. And I didn't see that my line had still been up quite high the way I was playing the fish. So I had to kind of pull it through and get it to bounce off those branches. It did. And it went pretty well at that point. Came relatively easy from there into the net, and Demir was jumping with excitement. It didn't look that big to me, but he was jumping with excitement. He was yelling. Everything was great. And then I got a look at it, and it was actually a really decent fish. That ended up coming in at 27 pounds 11 ounces, so that was pretty awesome. Finally, we had a few fish in the sack from him the night before. Finally, I had contributed to our team efforts, and we had our 4 fish ready to go for the first weigh-in that evening. And I think Demir and I both had a few fish later that day, but none of them were as big as what we had already had in the... No, that's not true.
I was going to say, you were moving fish, throwing fish back in.
That's right. Because we had a 14-pounder that we culled with a 16-pounder. And then shortly after that, we culled that 16 with an 18. So we had upgraded our lower fish, I think, 3 times that afternoon. So we were kind of on a good run once we had figured out that the longer rigs were what we're producing. Because I had a number of fish that that afternoon. Then going into that evening, Demir and I both did quite well through that night. How did you guys do on that second night?
About as good as we did with the first night.
Nothing. Just the one
Nothing.
fish, or
Out of the 77 hours, we had 5 fish.
just 5 total?
Total. Nope, 6 because we put one back.
Yeah, you had that little one, right?
Yeah.
And all of that came that first day and first night sort of thing.
No, it was the second afternoon came our other 3.
Ah. So it was a lot tougher over in your swim, even though you guys had fish showing there most of the first half.
We could not figure out what they needed or wanted. It didn't matter what we did. We tried pop-up, we tried corn, we tried bottom baits, we tried pink and yellows and whites, and it's just nothing was getting them to bite like you guys were having.
Yeah. And like it seemed like we got everything right that second day. So that first night, second night went really well for Demir and I. And then came the third day where things changed. The wind completely shifted on us. It came from, instead of coming from the south
Every
west,
day it was changing directions.
yeah, like the second night it was coming from behind us. All of a sudden it was like a northeast wind. Oh, is that looping again? What's happening with that? Why is that doing that?
Well, I have my phone going, my computer, my iPad. Your son has his device going upstairs. So we're using a lot of bandwidth right now.
Okay. But it's not chopping up too much for our viewers, is it?
No.
Okay.
No, it's just pausing, and that fly's going to get... Oh, we just got this.
But yeah, the way the winds were, it was really messing us up because it was never really consistent. It was constantly changing. Southwest, then it was like a northwest, then it was just a north, then it was dead calm, then it came... There's a fly there. It keeps going in front of the camera. Yeah, then it came out of the southeast, which just killed us on the third day. You guys had no activity. You didn't even have fish rising at that point, did you?
After the second day when we caught our last fish, that was it. We didn't see another fish anywhere in our swim.
Stop it. Go sleep.
Until probably about 3 hours before the close of the competition.
Yeah, once that wind changed to the east, Demir and I were shut down completely. We were getting no liners, no bumps, no nothing. The third day just shut down for us completely. Turned out that was the day we all decided to have lunch together.
Yep.
So we cooked up a big lunch, and we all had that because we had nothing else going on. And then going into the final night, I think both of our teams were feeling a little bit down. Like things just hadn't gone right for us. We had, you guys had a strong start, we had a strong middle, and then here we are going into the end, and we're seeing the standings. At that point, Demir and I had moved ourselves up to 4th, and we were holding that pretty well. You guys had kind of stagnated because you didn't have the fish coming in, and you guys weren't sitting really as well as you had liked.
Yeah, we didn't move from, I think we were at 16th by the end of day 3.
Yeah, it's, Demir and I were happy with where we were, but we knew we needed a couple of kicker fish through the night to really kick that off. And, yeah, the night couldn't have gone more depressing. It went back to the situation of the first night where I was getting a lot of liners, a lot of pickups, but no proper takes. Demir had a couple of blistering takes, only for the fish to come off. So by the time the final morning had started and day had broke, we didn't have any fish in the sack through the night. I think we had landed 3 fish through the night that Demir had been able to get, and I think I had 1. And if I even had 1, mine might have come later. But Demir did have a few after we had lost a few, and they were all small. Our smallest fish at that point, I think, was 22 pounds, and we were getting like 15, 16, 17 pounders through the night. I think one of them even came in at like about 8 pounds. It was really, really small. So that last night and into that first morning was very difficult. That's also when the rain started, which sucked.
It rained a lot.
We had beautiful weather the first couple days, and now the last morning it just started pouring. And funny enough, the wind changed back around to southwest. So we had the impression that things were going to go a little bit better for the morning because of the fact that it did change back to the wind that we were catching with. But we weren't quite sure how it was going to go about. Buffering again?
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. It's distracting.
Don't look at it.
So yeah, knowing that we had a wind that should work and rain, we were thinking, okay, the fish are really going to put the feed bag on. We have a few hours left. Maybe we can get a 30 out. We had done the math and figured that if we could get about an 8-pound upgrade, we would end up in the top 5, no problem. So we needed a 30-pounder. And it was rough to start with. We had coffee with the Fish'n Canada crew that morning, as did you guys. We were all back and forth with each other, trying to figure out what we were going to do the last morning. Started a slow pack down a little bit the night before, but more so that first morning, waiting for the bites to come. And then we actually started getting bites at our peg again. You guys were completely shut down. You had nothing over there.
We were packed and ready to go home by 10:30.
So it was about 9:30 when Demir and I started getting bites again, and we had a few small fish, but they weren't enough to upgrade. But we did have one that was kind of a scraper, and obviously we're checking things with our scales and comparing that to the official scales. There's always going to be that variation where, get out of there, damn fly. There's always going to be that variation where my scale might be a little bit off compared to theirs. So we had one fish that would have been scraping just under 22 pounds or just over 22 pounds. We thought maybe that would be a good kicker to give us a few extra ounces. So having got that fish, we put it in the sack and hope for the best, hope for a bigger one. Had a few more fish after that, several of which weren't quite enough to do anything for our standings. But Demir had a genius idea at that point. We had been using the pop-ups pretty much exclusively, him and I. And that last night, with everything just kind of shutting down the way it did, he wanted to try something different. So that morning, he decided to put on a snowman rig, fish more of a bottom bait. And what he went with, I believe it was still his helicopter rig, but he went with 20 mil pineapple boilie, and then a 12 mil pink pop-up topper, and that's what he put out. And it was on a ring blowback rig with a longer hair. He had 2 takes within 10 minutes of putting that rig out, both of which unfortunately came off, and he figured that to be due to the longer hair, where they had taken the bait and not the hook. Based on that, seeing that change being needed, I immediately tied up a new rig, kept it incredibly simple, but on the same lines of what Demir had done, which had got us bites in a tough spot, because we do figure those fish were better fish. Again, I went to the end trap soft, and no break in the coating, nothing like that. I stripped off a little bit of the coating just for the hair, put on the, this was a 12 mil, I think they were originally almond pop-ups that were soaked with goo, mainline pop-ups. These are the ones that we got from Core, from Holland, like 3 or 4 years ago. He sent these over for us.
Yep.
And yes, Core, I am still using these. I only have a few left, but they are still catching us fish. So put that on as my pink topper instead of the cell. The 20 mil pineapple bottom bait. You're going to like this, Goldie. A little bead on the hair to help hold that down. And I made a shorter hair. So I made sure that the bead just went by the bend of the hook. This is a size 2 Universal Perfection hook. So I went with a bigger hook with the bigger bait. So yes, still semi-long hair, longer than what I would normally go with, but this was much shorter than the hair that Demir was using. And we put this out, and yeah, I got a few fish with this, one of which was a nice 24-pounder, which gave us about a 10-ounce upgrade. But yeah, caught fish literally right till the end of the tournament. The 24-pounder came with 3 minutes left until 12. So we were able to actually get our upgrade right at the last second. At that point, you guys were pretty much over at our swim already.
Yeah, we were done.
Yeah, you were done. You had already come over. We were starting to load the van. And yeah, that was very simple. I was calling it my Daryl Peck rig because it was so simple. It was like a 10-turn knotless knot, which he always does, like that specific number of turns. That's what got us our last fish. Yeah, that was kind of the end of the tournament for us. We were able to then pack everything up, get changed out of all our wet clothes and stuff like that, and get back to the hotel for some lunch and the ending ceremonies that afternoon. So final standings, you can definitely go on, I think it's the Fish'n Canada website to see, or their Facebook page to see the actual standings with how everybody finished. But Demir and I, that 10-ounce upgrade was able to bump us just enough to tie for 7th place. So we lost our 4th place spot through the night with some bigger fish that come out to other anglers, but we were able to tie for 7th and kind of stay in that top 10 bracket, thankfully. You guys dropped down to, was it 15th again?
18th.
Was it 18th?
18th, but the only ones with 4 fish. Or the last set pet, or the last team with 4 fish.
So 2 years in a row, you and Kevin were both the last team to produce 4 fish.
Yes.
And then there was a few teams that only had 1 fish after you guys, 1 or 2.
It was almost a blanker again this year too.
Yeah, up to the last morning there was 3 teams that hadn't actually caught a fish yet. But luckily this time everybody caught. So yeah, not in the standings where we had hoped to go. We had hoped to do better, but we caught fish. We fished hard. We did what we could to figure things out. Slapped around with the wind again this year for Demir and I. But again, just like last year, I was able to learn a lot from what we were doing. Definitely implementing longer rigs into my arsenal is something that I'm going to do a lot more of. Tipping my pop-ups is something I've done done for I think the last 2 years, but not as often as maybe I should. So maybe when I'm using yellow out there and it's not working, maybe just tipping it with that bit of pink will turn it on like it did this time for me. Is there any particular things that you learned out of this time around that might help your angling the rest of the season?
The wind sucks.
Yeah.
I don't know what was up with the wind, but at one point I couldn't tell which direction it was coming from. It was like swirling.
Yeah.
It started as a northwesterly.
That's where it was coming from behind us.
And then went north, and then northeasterly, and then east, and then back to west, and then to a southeasterly, and then a northwest. It was just really bizarre.
Yeah.
Apparently that's very common in that area, but it was just weird to watch the wind just sort of go wherever it felt like.
So the odd thing with that is that area is apparently really affected by wind, the whole region up there for fishing, which we just don't encounter here. It almost doesn't matter what wind we have. We have a venue we can go to where we're going to catch fish.
We've been in torrential downpours with the wind blowing at us, almost
80 kilometers an hour,
knocking down the trees, and we're pulling in
fish after fish
after fish.
And then, a week later, it's freezing cold, winds completely opposite direction, and we're still producing fish. So the wind doesn't affect us here as much. So when you got a venue that's that affected by wind, obviously that's something you're going to want to pay attention to more than anything else. It's almost like everything else is secondary at that point. But yeah, that's pretty much how the tournament went. It was a great time. Definitely, I'm obviously looking forward to next year. I think this year, though, I'm going to take a bit of a break and not rush to start getting things ready so soon.
Well, you don't have much to get ready this year, right?
Well, yeah, I've upgraded my equipment enough that I don't need much. Next year, I think it's just going to be pretty much just baits that I'll want to make sure I stock up on to go with my game plan. But yeah, overall, I think I can, normally it's like a week later and I start prepping and planning what I need and spacing it out over the year. I think this year I'm just going to enjoy the rest of this season here, focus on refining what I'm actually doing, and try and produce some bigger fish this season.
Well, I was going to say our fish have now finally turned on, so we should be starting to do better now.
yeah, with that said, our fish having turned on in our area, because it took a long time, I got a message from Kevin this morning, just the creek, just down from here, where he got his 30-pounder 2 years ago. They were spawning there this morning. So obviously we know our shallow areas, shallow weedy areas, are now full into the spawn swing. So it's going to be our deeper areas that we concentrate on for the next few weeks till the spawn is done. Then we'll be able to move back into the creeks and start getting into some of those spots. So that'll be exciting. I think we're going to go out tomorrow morning, and we have a project to film tomorrow where I'm going to need to produce 2 fish. Do you want to mention why?
I might produce a fish too.
You might? You're going to fish as well?
I might.
I thought you were just going to go hang out there and count ticks.
Oh, I could do that too. It sounded like it was a bad problem down there where we were fishing this last weekend.
Yeah, the tournament, apparently there was some swims that were just absolutely horrible. I think the worst one I heard of is where Dave and Clint were fishing. Good friends of ours, fellow carp nuts and associates with Monster Carp Tackle. They had peg 1, one of the pegs that we didn't walk down into because we couldn't really see the way the water was going in there. They had apparently like waist-high grass, and I guess they had found a ton of ticks on them as they moved in there. Nothing but griping and complaining from Clint that whole first day getting in there. I was getting messages at 7 o'clock while I'm about to put my line in that they had literally just gotten their stuff to their pegs. So it took them 2 hours to get in there. And it's kind of bad to say, I have to admit. I was laughing my butt off the whole time Clint was complaining about it, because I know Dave was probably calm as can be. That's just the way Dave is, super calm. But I can just picture in my mind Clint just going nuts and swearing and complaining and like, damn ticks, and he's picking ticks off of himself before he gets started. Yeah, they ended up coming in 4th because they absolutely smashed it. Those two landed so many fish. They crushed it and moved themselves up from last year where they finished 5th. They moved into 4th this year, which was awesome for them. But it was funny at the final ceremony at the end to ask Clint, are you done your whining? Are you done your complaining now? He's like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Kind of like playing like he didn't do it that morning. But that was awesome. Great job to them for doing so well and absolutely smashing it. They did have at least one 30-pounder. I know that. I know Clint had a 30, but they had a ton of good quality fish and did really, really well. So I've seen one of the photos of Dave's rig, so I'm going to be picking his brain on that another day because he did something that I wasn't expecting. But yeah, we come back. Kevin and I went and put some of our leftover bait into some of our spots to prime them up for the week. And, we didn't see any ticks at all while we were up there. You guys had some longer grass. Demir and I had nice groomed grass, but we didn't see any ticks at all. Just ants for us. We had lots of ants
everywhere.
And everything.
There's ants crawling all over the table right now because they're coming out of the box.
Oh, the gear still, and it's been a week. But, yeah, we didn't have any ticks at all. Kevin and I go prime one of our spots over at swim 2 of our secret spot, get back in the van to drive away, and he had a tick on him. So, we go up north into this tick-infested space, and everything's bad, and, watch for ticks, put on the bug spray. I didn't wear bug spray at all the whole time I was there. I didn't need it.
I almost used an entire can.
Wow. That's got to be pretty bad if you're using it.
Yeah, they just loved both of us. Kevin was just being slaughtered, and I was every 15-20 minutes I had to put another spray on because I'd either get my foot wet or something like that. And as soon as the skin was exposed, they were all over it, biting through our clothes too. I need that rhino stuff that
the rhino skin clothing that Demir had.
Yeah,
but yeah, all that up there. We come back here, and then all of a sudden Kevin finds the tick. We thought that was kind of funny, but yeah, we're gonna go tomorrow and get started on that. As I mentioned, I need to catch at least 2 fish because the video we're going to film tomorrow, which we hope to release next Saturday, so on schedule of noon next Saturday, this video will feature a contest. The idea is that it will be a guess the weight contest, so I'll produce 2 fish, hopefully, or I'll produce fish and Goldie produces fish. We'll figure it out. We need 2 fish. That's what matters. And we're going to weigh the fish, but we're not going to tell you in the video what they are. You will be required to answer in the comments what your thoughts are on the weights of those fish. We'll do a full description of everything in the video itself that you'll be able to see next week. But the plan is to give away some Monster Carp Tackle goodies. And before I tell you what they are, I'll let you know why. As mentioned in our last live stream for May, we were pushing and pushing and pushing to get up to the 1,000 subscriber mark so that we can officially get things going again with monetization and also some of the other features that you only have access to once you've hit 1,000. Yeah, we hit that point while we were at the tournament, actually. I believe it was the last day. I happened to just go into YouTube on my phone and take a look, and there we were sitting at 1,001 subscribers. So a huge thank you out to all of you who have subscribed and also shared the channel, shared our videos to bring in other subscribers. Please continue to do that. We really, really appreciate it. But now that we've hit that 1,000 threshold, we want to launch a contest. So with this Guess the Weight contest, all the details and all the instructions will be given in the video. It'll be a matter of you commenting in the comment section what your guesses are on the weights of those fish. There'll be a little bit more to it than that, probably not going over kind of like the whole Price is Right thing that we did before. But the prizes as of right now, I've been speaking to Dave from Monster Carp Tackle. Our plan is to give away for one of the fish a correct guess. One of them will be a 2.75 test curve 9-foot Monster Carp Tackle rod, which is a pretty damn good value to be getting in a contest. It's a really good rod. You've seen both of us use them. Absolutely love them. We've landed fish up to...
Trying really hard to break mine, and I haven't been able to do it yet.
Yeah,
It's not the fish that I'm catching, it's spotting out that I'm trying to.
Yeah, so you've landed...
overload.
I think the biggest fish we've seen come out with them was the 3615 you've had.
Yeah.
It's handled small fish just fine. It's been ideal for stocking. Great for handling big fish. Great for pulling fish out of snags and heavy weeds. And you've even gotten to the point where you're spotting with it quite regularly.
Demir spotted with it.
Yeah, Demir was casting a loaded midi spawn to 90-something yards with it.
Yeah.
Like no problem. Like just like that, gone. It's a tough rod. It's a great rod. Some people don't like the aesthetics of the butt grip. They can get over it. It's a really, really good rod. So we're going to give away one of those. Next, the reason we want to catch a second fish is because we want to give away another prize. We don't want it to just be one prize. There's many of you out there that helped contribute to us getting to the 1,000 mark. Love it when you guys interact with us through the comments section or through the live chats like we're doing today. So what we're hoping to give away with the second fish, guess the weight, and you will have to label them fish 1 or fish 2. You can guess on both, but the plan is for a pair of Monster Carp Tackle alarms. Now the reason I want to give away a pair is because, well, unless you live here in Canada with us, you can use more than one rod. We can only use one. So, if you happen to be in England or somewhere in Europe where you can use 2 rods, the idea will be to give away 2 alarms, and then you'll have both of those set up for day sessions. So, yeah, everything's kind of getting put into place, and we're being joined by someone else. What are you doing, buddy?
I'm hungry, but I also want to be in the video.
You want to be in the video, eh?
Yeah.
Stinker. You want to hop up in the chair?
Yeah.
Okay, don't touch anything else. Just hop up in the chair. All right.
Hello, everybody.
So,
I am Zane, and this is my daddy, if you know him. His name is John.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, Zane, our little junior angler buddy. Don't do that. It'll be really bad for the microphone. Okay?
Sorry. Sorry, Micro.
So, yeah, that's our contest. We'll release all the details in the video that we're going to launch next week.
Yeah.
So all of that's going to go well. And, yeah, Zane, you've been out doing some carp fishing with us recently, and you've had a few, haven't you?
Yeah.
How big were they?
Like, I think mostly this big, because that's just an awesome size.
So you were getting some smaller ones, but you did have one bigger one that wasn't quite your personal best. Your personal best being what, 16 pounds, I think it is?
Yeah, 16 pounds.
So some of the ones you got this season were only about like 12 or 14 pounds. They weren't quite big enough, but they were really, really good fish, right?
Yeah.
And they're really strong, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've done really well there.
Can I just tell the people this?
Depends on what you're going to tell them.
Make sure to subscribe to my channel, which I'm soon going to have, okay?
Well, I'll tell you what. Well, let's wait till you actually get a channel going, and we get things set up for that before we tell people to subscribe to it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Just
You're
make
not
sure.
quite ready yet.
Yeah.
But
I know.
he does want to launch a junior angler YouTube channel, so we're going to...
Wait, what? I thought I was making plush videos.
Well, that's something that you can do on your own later. But you were talking about doing a fishing video as well.
Yeah, that's actually just going to be a series called Plush Fishing.
Oh, okay.
Because it's actual, literal plush, just fishing.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about that more as you get older, because we've got to make sure you're mature enough to do that, right?
Yeah.
For the time being, why don't you say goodbye, and you pop upstairs, and I'll make you something to eat, because we're almost finished here.
Okay.
Okay?
Bye.
Okay, now stop trying to take over my channel. Get over. Go, go.
See ya. Next day when you make a video, I'm gonna be in there.
Craziness. Always got to get the spotlight, that one. But yeah, we've talked about our contests and a little bit of what we're doing, giving you a recap of how things went, the rigs that I used, and how everything pretty much went overall last week, and getting set up into our next session. Not much going on in the chat front, so with no real interaction to worry about, we'll probably wrap this one up. What do you think, Goldie?
Yep.
Okay. Because apparently I got to feed the kid.
Apparently so.
Apparently children need to eat.
Yeah, that's what they tell you.
That's what they tell you, but
Wow,
is
science says
it
something
really
right.
necessary?
I don't know.
People say obey all the rules of the road, but do you really have to?
A lot of people don't.
Yeah. But yeah, we're going to wrap up this one here. So stay tuned next week for the video that we launch on Saturday. That will be basically everything to do with our contest and our giveaway for a Monster Carp Tackle rod and a pair of Monster Carp Tackle alarms. We're going to get our hands on those and get those arranged. And if I haven't mentioned it already, the winners of that will be announced in our live stream in July. So the second Saturday of July, everything will be mentioned and given away at that point, and we'll get the information from the winners and we'll get those sent out to them. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, if you watch this channel, you have the ability to participate and contribute to that contest. All we ask is that you be a subscriber. So yeah, there's our recap of the Fish'n Canada Carp Cup for this year, and hopefully we'll have a lot more exciting news to talk about in our next live stream in July, as I mentioned, where we talk about basically all the sessions we have in between now and then.
Well,
which
now that we have 1,000 subscribers, we could probably do that one on the shore again.
Oh, you think so?
Well, we can go live with our phones again, so
So you want to do the next live stream live from the bank?
we could possibly do that unless it's raining.
We could do it even if it is raining. Microphone will suck though.
Yeah.
But that would be cool. It'd be nice to get back to a chance where we could get some fish live on camera. Because it's been, what, 2 years since we did that? Almost 3.
I don't know. I'd have to go through the library, but yeah, it's been a long while.
All right. Well, since there's no comments going on and no interactive chat to play with today, let's wrap this one up. I'll go take care of my parental duties. I said duty. And then I'm going to get back to just sitting down watching fish and getting my gear ready for tomorrow. Thanks for watching.